Hey everybody, my name is Chase Pipes and you're watching Chasing History, brought to you by Arrowheads.com and Smoky Mountain Relic Room, and we are freaking here in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, digging awesome fossil fish with our friend Tom Lindgren. Tom, thanks,
How you
man.
doing, Chase?
Dude, appreciate you having us out.
Well, when are you going to come again?
As soon as I can, man. As soon as I can. This is the blast and one of the most fun things that we do all year. But this is where a lot of the fossils that you see for sale in the relic room, this is where they come from. But what I want to do is I want to explain to you guys the history of this. How this fossilization happens. How is this formation here? Just it's awesome freaking history. You guys got to check it out. So Tom, the first thing is like, all right, how did this? What are we digging to begin with? All right, we know we got fossil fish and stuff like that, and this formation is known throughout the world for its spectacular fossils. But what is it, and why is it here?
Well, we're standing in what was the bed of an ancient Eocene freshwater lake.
Now, Eocene, that's
50 million years ago.
So that's a time period, 50 million years
50
ago.
million years ago, this was a freshwater lake. As far as you could see this way,
So
was water. As far as you could see that way was water.
And water.
We're talking about a lake that was at least 120 square miles.
Whoa, God, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
and this lake was alive for 5 million years.
So that's almost as big, or if not bigger, than the Great Lakes, correct? Or is that around the same size?
And not as big as the Great Lakes now.
But fairly big.
But it still was a very large freshwater lake.
Now, this is Eocene period, so this is, 50 million years old. So this is right after the end of the dinosaurs. So 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs is kaput.
Yeah.
You got a few million years, and then...
You have the Paleocene, the end of the Cretaceous, the extinction of the dinosaurs, the extinction of, 70% of all life on Earth occurred about 65 million years ago. All the major animals that lived on this planet at that time pretty much died out, except for the crocodiles, which we see in the lakes that still were here during the Cretaceous, during the time of the dinosaur era.
So that was one species that made it through
made
the
it on
transition.
through. But if you look at the mosasaurs and you understand these large Cretaceous sea monsters that were up to 30-some feet long, they didn't make it through. Yet the crocodiles found a way to get past that extinction point and actually flourish in the Eocene. In fact, last year we recovered almost 11-foot crocodile out of these quarries.
Wow. Well, if they can survive a Florida winter, I think they could survive,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Florida, because 52.3 million years ago, that's what we're standing on right here. This has been dated based upon the tuff beds that represent the volcanic ash that laid down on these lakes during volcanic eruptions. You can actually date those tuff beds, those volcanic ash layers, to within about 200,000 years of when that eruption happened.
Oh, wow.
And we find those periodically throughout all of the sediment that we are looking around here. There'll be an orange layer. That's actually volcanic ash. By dating that, we're able to come to within like 200,000 years of the age that this lake was laying down the sediment that we're currently standing on, known as the 18-inch layer.
Right. So, all right, so let's talk about the lake and how this fossil formation actually occurred and how it's exposed today. Because the way I see it is, here, come here for a second. And you tell me if I'm wrong. So what you've basically got is you've got a big pile, or you've got a lake here, correct?
Yeah.
And then over the millions of years, dirt fills up on top of that lake.
No.
And well, just through...
It's not dirt.
It's not dirt. What is it?
The building block of what this is calcium carbonate.
Okay.
That's the molecular building block of limestone. You take carbon, calcium, and oxygen, or carbon, oxygen, CaCO3. Calcium carbonate is carbon, oxygen, and calcium that form as a molecule in the water that becomes heavier than the water. If you're in a freshwater lake today and you've got your goggles on and you're swimming around, you see these little particles floating in the water. That's calcium carbonate. That's the building block of this limestone.
Okay.
And it continually happens in freshwater lakes. And so as the calcium carbonate is accumulating on the bottom, you end up with a muck. If you're in a freshwater lake in Minnesota and Wisconsin, Michigan, whatever, you've got your bare feet walking on the bottom of this lake, you'll feel it squishing through your toes.
That's what this is.
That's what this started out as, was that muck. But as it builds up and pressure keeps pushing down, over tens of thousands and millions of years, we form limestone. Anything that lived in, on, around, or flew over that lake and died in that lake and settled into that muck on the bottom, potentially is going to be fossilized in these sediments.
Okay. So what kind of things are you talking about? Stuff flying over the lake? I mean, are there birds found in here? What kind of what
Some
are we?
of the
What
finest
found?
feathered birds in the world are found here with their
Really?
feathers. Soft tissue is amazingly well preserved in the 18-inch layer. In fact, not just the 18-inch layer. There's layers throughout this whole sedimentology area where certain layers are so conducive to the fossilization process that either oxygen was low at the time, so you didn't have the oxygenation that helped the decomposition, or you had predation was not occurring because the water was so deep that they sunk into the deep waters, so you didn't have scavengers coming in and ripping these bodies apart. That's why you find such beautifully preserved fossils in here, ranging from anywhere from insects, the delicate features of the wings of a dragonfly, to crocodiles, turtles, mammals. The only known horse that's ever been discovered from this area, the what we would refer to as Heracitherium or Eohippus, it only stood about this tall, maybe 2 feet long, was found on the quarry just behind us here.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So what we have is we have a glimpse into the past. We have a glimpse into 52 million years ago of what was living in, on, around, or under.
Yeah.
Because anything that, for instance, just in 2007, my son Adam found a snake fossil here that was so well preserved it was still kind of coiled. It's kind of a boavis. It's basically
all right, go ahead. You rolling? All right. All right, guys. There's going to be some weird editing in the photo and the video, so we had a slight technical malfunction due to my part. So I do apologize. We were talking about Adam's boa that he found, and I was asking about all the different species and stuff that you find in this lake, and you were explaining about how this is just the conditions of what we have here is so perfect for fossilization for not only fish, but plants and animals, pollen even, and how this is basically like a snapshot of this area in the Eocene, a total and complete snapshot, wouldn't you say?
It gives you an overview over a period of time. Now, not all of the layers here are conducive to fossilization. We go through many feet of limestone that we just have to bulldoze off,
Right.
because the conditions were not right for animals to fossilize. In order for an animal to die and actually end up being a fossil in this stone, everything has to work, which means predators have to leave it alone. It can't be dead for too long and be able to be decomposed before it's buried, which will stop it. Once oxygen is not accessible to the specimen itself, it won't deteriorate anymore. So some of these specimens you'll see are going to be scattered bones and whatnot.
Right.
Those are animals that they died, the stomach gases built up, they exploded, scavengers came in and were eating on these things and scattered them while the calcium carbonate was covering them. Now, the faster calcium carbonate is produced, the less chance you have of decomposition to happen. So there are times when it's really happening fast, there are times it's just slowly occurring. And then also you'll find out during the time of this lake, there's going to be dark and light layers if you look at the sides of the limestone, those are referred to as barbs. The dark layer actually represents a time of maybe a stormy condition when plant material was coming down the stream, being washed into this lake. And then when all this material's been washed in from storms, it'll start to decompose, and it gives you that darker layer. The white layer is just the calcium carbonate without any of the organic decomposition occurring. And at one time they thought this would be annular, but actually more than likely, as in freshwater lakes today that produce calcium carbonate, you'll see layers of dark white that represent stormy conditions. Hurricanes were happening at that time. This was like southern Florida. This was a subtropical environment. It had palm trees.
So here in Wyoming, you're talking palm trees, alligators. I mean, it was like Florida.
Yeah, and you had
without Disneyland.
If you go off to the east here, there's an area where they found birds the size of flamingos.
God,
So you're
cool.
talking about a very subtropical environment. The Earth at that time was about 15 degrees warmer all over the globe than it is today. So it was a much warmer climate. Also, with continental drift, we were much further south. We were more toward the equator. Wyoming was not where it is today. It's moved further north, and you've got the Rocky Mountain uplift. At the time this lake existed, we were maybe 2,000 foot in elevation. In the last 52 million years, we've gone almost a mile up in the air from where they were 52 million years ago.
And that's from the Pacific Plate slamming into the North American Plate and pushing, forming the Rocky Mountains. And this is technically in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, right, or close to it?
Well, most of the Rockies are going to be more to the west from us here, but the Rockies, I mean, this is part of it. If you go north, you go up to Banff, just straight north of here. I mean, this mountains, you go up to the Tetons. We're only 3 hours from the Grand Tetons.
Cool. I mean, this is awesome. So, all right. So, when you go to find this stuff, all right. Let's. Well, first off, how were these fossils first discovered? I was reading, back in the 1860s, some of the very first people to notice fossils up here were the builders of the Transcontinental Railroad.
That's exactly true.
Which is just west of here.
Well, it's actually just north of us. 3.5 miles north of where we stand right now, or where we're kneeling right now, was where the first Transcontinental Railroad was built, right at the base of Fossil Butte National Monument, or Fossil Butte itself.
Oh, you mean that's it?
That's
the original track?
It's moved. It's been moved since the original one.
Right.
Remember the house, the house down on the road down there? There's an old train depot. That train depot, that old building, that old train depot is actually on the original line. Since that time, they've moved it further north.
Oh, that's cool. For what the Transcontinental Railroad is post-Civil War era. There was a whole idea of uniting the continents, and a railroad was started, one in the east, one in the west, and they met at Promontory Point in Utah, a couple hours west of here. But where that route took place, and was, that's cool. We gotta go check that out. Just north of here. And so guys on that were finding the first fossils.
Well, not here, not on Fossil Butte. They found it near Green River, Wyoming.
Okay.
And that's where the formation comes from. As they're cutting along the Green River, the route of the Transcontinental there, they were finding fishes coming out of the shale as they're trying to lay the bed of this rail.
Oh, that's cool.
And so Edward Drinker Cope was notified, came out here on his expeditions in the 80s. In fact, in 1881, he published Cope's Bible.
Now, who was he?
Edward Drinker Cope was a paleontologist who was part of the dinosaur wars of the late 1800s with Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. They were the two dinosaur paleontologists that wanted to describe more species than the others. In fact, they actually shot at each other. Their crews would shoot at each other. I mean, it was a true war.
This is my raptor. This is my raptor. Get your guns. Let's go.
Yeah, but they all in fact, they both were describing some of the same dinosaurs at the same time with different names.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to have more described species. That's a whole story.
Right.
In itself.
Yeah.
But understand, the fossils out here in southwestern Wyoming have been known since the middle 1800s.
Yeah.
And even before that, the Indians were here, and the Indians saw these fossils and thought of them as some ancient life too, but ancient human remains. I mean, it's really very interesting how, you start looking at the mythology of the West and how the lore of the West developed, and here we are among some of these amazing fossils. They would have seen these fossil fish in the stone because there would be areas that it started to erode out. In fact, I've gone to some of the cliffs and I've looked up, and here's the 18-inch layer from the underside, and there was a Ferriotus looking at me, staring down at me.
Oh,
it's like,
that's cool.
Wow, how am I going to get that out? Because on top of that, there was 50 foot of rock.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun.
Do you know of any mythology that's tied in with these fossils at all in native lore?
I don't. But I know that there is some,
yeah.
And that's something that's certainly worthy of doing some more exploration and some more inquiry on.
That'll be a good chasing history question. What we'll do is if anybody can give us the name of a book and and some evidence of the mythology of some of these fossil fish, Chris will announce on our Facebook page a cool prize for you guys to win. So that's one you can't Google. We've done this, and everybody Googles it, and it's hard to give away prizes. That's a good question.
Well, what's interesting, when I first came out and leased this land for quarries in the middle 1980s, Gertrude Lewis, who was the matriarch of the rancher that owns all this property today, actually was a girl when Pegleg Arlie Craig was out here digging his fossils.
Oh, that's cool.
And prepping his fossils with his penknife and selling them at the little train station in Fossil, Wyoming, which is the little depot right down here. And she and I would spend hours talking about the times when she would go up to the sites with him, because he would use a wheelbarrow to dig this rock and throw it over the side. He'd use black powder to open up these areas. We use bulldozers.
Yeah.
He used black powder because black powder would lift. Dynamite would fracture, black powder lifts. So we used black powder to lift the stone off from the layers so he could dig these fossils.
Cool.
And so she was a witness of the early historical, commercial, paleontological treasures that were coming out of here in the primitive manner of not using modern technology whatsoever. And yet they still found the original snake Arlie Craig found about 1905. It was 100 years later when my son Adam found the second snake ever found. Now 100 years went. Thousands of people have been out here digging during that time. Millions of fossils have been dug out of here, but not another snake until Adam found that in 2007.
That's just too cool.
And then what happens just 3 years ago? He finds the third snake ever in this site.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of what we do. This is the modern day treasure hunt. This is what excites us every morning. We want to get up, we want to get down, we run to the stone, because you don't know what you're going to find.
Well, that's just it. And you've got the opportunity to discover new species that nobody's found
Absolutely.
before. That, to me, that's awesome. Not only when you pop open a fish, that's what's so cool about this. When you pop open a fish, you are literally the first person in history and the first thing in 50 million years to see what you're seeing. It is literally, you're the first. I mean, that's just awesome. And to find a new species, I mean, come on, man, that's too cool.
Well, it's the natural high.
Yeah.
You don't need to be drinking a beer. You don't need to be doing drugs to get a natural high.
Amen.
The adrenaline starts pumping when you split open that rock and you're seeing something that no one has ever looked at before, and you're touching something that's been buried for 52 million years. It's so cool, like a crocodile or a turtle, or this summer a bird with feathers. We found a bird with a 2.5 to 3 foot wingspan that has feathers, black feathers with the amazing discoveries.
That's cool.
That's what fuels our passion. And this is what has kept me passionate for the last 35 years.
And see, that's what it's all about. Because a lot of people, especially a lot of people that are watching this right now, don't realize that you actually can do this. You know, this is something that you can do. You can do anything you want to in life. You just have to want to go out and do it. And if this is something, if you're a kid watching, you want to be a paleontologist, you can do it. If you're an adult and you want to go out and dig some of this stuff up, you can do it. You can do anything you want to. If you're passionate about it, man, go for it. And Tom is passionate about it. He loves it, and he's went for it. And you've done this for what, over 30 years?
36 years.
36
I've been out
years.
here digging 36 years.
Man, gee, that is
All
awesome.
3 of my older boys have been doing this.
Yeah.
My younger son, Tommy, who's 8 years old, he's going to be doing this soon. I mean, it's not just something to do. It's an experience. You're not out here just digging a fossil. You're experiencing the moment. The moment of discovery is by far the most exciting part of this entire history of what we do. Is the moment of discovery. I mean, everyone's always searching for something, but it's when you discover. It's not even possessing it. It's just the discovery of it that is so empowering, that gets you up every morning to get back in there, because you want to find the next fossil horse. You want to find maybe the primate. Maybe,
cool.
I mean, there are primates that lived at this time, little lemurs.
Yeah.
Early primates. And would that be just so cool?
Oh man, that would be awesome.
And then think about the largest land mammal of the Eocene, the Uintathere. Rhinoceros-sized animal. They could have been preserved in here. It would have been a big animal, but it could have died, floated on out. You've seen carcasses and then eventually sunk. I mean, that's what I'm waiting to see, big bumps in this rock at some point, find the first Uintathere. It'd be unbelievable.
That's cool. And see, that's it, guys. You can do anything you want to. You just gotta want to do it. And you don't need drugs or alcohol or anything like that. It is its own natural awesomeness. So, all right, let's talk about what you've got here. What you're working on here. So you're working in the 18-inch layer right here. How are you going about finding the fossils where we're at here?
Well, the fossils, when we're overcast, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because normally they're not exposed. You don't split these fossils out. They're still going to be covered with some of the calcium carbonate matrix. But if you use low light, like at night with lanterns, or if you've got the sun coming from a certain direction, mornings or evenings are great because you get the low light coming across. The bump of that backbone that is actually raised. It's not completely flat. There's going to be dimension to the backbone and the skull. You'll be able to see that with low light as it casts a shadow wherever that backbone is laying in this stone.
Okay.
And the beauty of the 18-inch layer is it doesn't split apart. Instead of having the rock where you split and you have part fish on one side and part fish on the other side, you actually end up having the fish completely buried where you can use hand tools, sand blasters, pneumatic pins, even hand tools with X-Acto knives or little dental tools that we used to create our own tools to slowly scrape away this calcium carbonate from the top of the fossil. And the more magnification you use in the preparation, the finer the fossil becomes because you know when to stop.
Cool. So let's say you find a fish like this over there, like that one over there. There's a good example.
Like that one, you can still see, even with the rain starting, you can still see the backbone of this fossil fish in the ground.
So right here, can you get in close on this? Get in close on this. See this backbone. So you will split some of these upper layers off, and then like this, and then you'll see this right here.
And this is the skull.
And so this is the skull right here. Now, what species is this?
This is Diplomistus dentatus. This is a species that became extinct about 30 million years ago. There's no species like this living today. It was a surface feeder. You can tell that by the jaws are somewhat upturned. They would have eaten other fish for sure, but they would have been near the surface looking for the smaller fish swimming near the surface. And on this other end, you can see a little bit of a Priscacara that's been exposed. Priscacara is actually an ancient bass relative.
Oh, that's cool.
But recently, within the last couple of years, Dr. Lance Grandy has determined that not all of what we call Priscacara today are Priscacara. He went back to the original description of Cope, which is Cockroelites. And so there's Priscacara and Cockroelites. But we've got mass mortality layers that we refer to as the Prisci layers, the Prisci mortality layers. And within that, you'll find both Cockroelites and Priscacara, even though they look very, very similar. The Priscacara, especially the Priscacara serrata, has a preopercular bone, which is part of the gill plate. It's the front gill plate. It's the first of the gill plate that has serrations on it that look like teeth. Whereas Cockroelites does not have that serrated gill plate. You also have a different number of dorsal spines, but subtle differences. But if you look at the sunfishes today, you'll have the pumpkin seed, you'll have the bluegill. They all are a little bit different.
Man, what amazes me is that this rock is such where you can look at the fossil and tell those subtle differences in order to determine one species from the other.
Well, you can't tell Cockroelites from a Liops if it's under 6 inches until you prepare it. We know that there's no Cockroelites over 6 inches. So if you find a 7-inch one, you know it's a Priscacara serrata. That's for sure. But also now we've got small Priscacaras. They're called Hypsicantha. Hypsiprisca hypsicantha, which is another described species of small sunfish type. But they would have been little guys, really small guys. The largest one is maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Wow. So when you mark out a plate like this, what's going to be your next step?
Once we've discovered the fish in the ground, we'll frame the fish out, drawing lines using just a carpenter's square. Try and get as square as we can because this will become a piece of art when we're done. Then we try and remove the rock all the way around until we get to the depth of what we want to take the thickness on this. If we take it too thin, when we lift it up, it's going to break. So we try to take the piece that we're looking for as deep as we possibly can to start with without interfering with potentially a fossil that's underneath this. If you cut too deep, you can cut through a fossil that's already been buried in here.
Yeah.
So we try to do it layer by layer. We'll remove an entire layer to make sure that we're not just getting a part of like a leaf or a plant or a palm frond. If you have a palm frond, they're very flat. And if you're just ripping things out, you could miss part of it and throw it over the side before you get the rest of it.
Right.
So once we've framed it out, we take a rock saw with a diamond blade and we'll cut a certain depth. That depth hopefully is not going to be too deep to the next splitting layer that we want to use to take this piece out. Once we've got to that point, we'll use our chisels, we'll come underneath, we'll loosen it up, pop it up, stand it on the edge, pick it up, and go put it onto the A-frame until we take it back to the prep lab.
Cool, man. That's awesome. I tell you what, man, I'm always envious and jealous. This is a great office. I love your office.
Well, it's
cool.
4 months of the year. This is where I call it home and office. This is where I work. And the hours vary depending upon the weather.
Right.
If the weather is too hot, our office hours are all night. We work with those lanterns at night with low light because it gets too hot out here. If it's too cold, we're working during the day using what light we can. But we work anywhere from middle of May until the middle of October till November. The latest I've ever been out here digging fishes is December 7th.
Wow. Have you ever been in the middle of summer, get a snowstorm or anything hit you?
August, I've had snow in August and I've had snow in June. So basically 11 months of the year I've experienced snow out here.
Yeah. Cool, cool.
Once the ground freezes though, once there's moisture in here and the ground freezes, you can't split this rock anymore. It becomes like concrete. All you do is chip it up.
Yeah.
So we have to take advantage of those months of the year when it's not frozen. Even if it freezes at night, if during the day it thaws out again, you could still split the rock. But once it's completely frozen, you're done for the season.
It's over. Wow. Well, Tom, man, thank you so much,
Hey,
dude.
this has been
I
great.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
If any of your friends want to come out with you sometime, bring them on out. Let them experience the
Will do.
passion of fossil land.
Ah, will do. Guys, y'all got to check this out. We'll put some more information up on our Facebook page and on our Chasing History page as well. And so, just remember, make the world a better place, just one person at a time. Be good to yourselves, be good to others, be good people. And why do we do this? Why do we study history? Because how do you know where you're going unless you know where you've been? And it's in studying and understanding the mistakes of the past that we prevent the failures of the future. Tom, thanks, dude. I appreciate it, man.
There's no failures
And
here.
That's right. And history rocks. Woohoo! Woohoo! Thanks. Hey everybody, my name's Chase Pipes. We're here with Arrowheads.com and Chasing History, and we're here with Tony Lindgren, and we're we're digging freaking fossil fish. This is awesome. So we're out here, we're digging at night. Tony, why are we digging at night?
We are digging for those fossil fish.
For those daggone fossils. But why at night? What makes nighttime digging so awesome?
By having your own light source and being able to manipulate it around the rock, it creates shadows across the rock, which allows us to then see the fossil depending on which direction it is. That's why you move the light around it, but it's much more easier to see them at night because we can do that.
So it just makes it jump out.
Right. In the daytime we can use it, use the sun, and that works to a certain extent, but at night it just is a lot easier.
Yeah, right. All right, well, here we are. Now, we've got, and this is where nighttime digging, I guess, comes in handy because there's a bump in this rock. And I came to you and was like, dude, what's up with this bump? And what did you say? What did you think about it?
It could be a big coprolite, but it's possible that it's a turtle. So we're going to find out and see what this thing is.
So basically, it could either be literally coprolite, which is literally a piece of crap, or it could be a turtle. So no matter what, we could get a turtle.
So let's start this
All right.
show on the road.
Now, as Tony's hammered in, what he's doing is he's trying to split this layer of rock. And what you do is you've got to take these wedges and just very easily separate these layers out. That's what these thick ones here are for, is to get that separation started. Then we use the longer pieces like this, and these pieces like this go all the way through the exterior of the rock and separate it out and make it basically where you can, flip the entire thing over and see what we've got.
Now we're getting close. I think we might need a shovel though.
Shovel.
And right here. We hear that crack creeping, that's the stone lifting up, getting ready to pop.
Coming around the corner here.
Ready to go. Now the period that we're in, this is all Eocene period, correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. So that's 54 plus or minus million years, right?
48 to 52 million
48
years.
to 52 million years. And that's what's cool about this. That's what's awesome about digging these fossils is, you know, the possibility of finding something that's literally millions of years old. I mean, this is right after the dinosaurs. This is the very first birth of life, immediately after the extinction of one of the most notable animals that we revere in the fossil record. This is a whole new ball game in the life story of planet Earth.
Here's a little flatter one, Tony.
Yeah, you got a flat one?
Move it over here.
Even better. There we go.
There you go. Flat on it. Perfection. And the turtle is?
A coprolite.
So
there you have it.
We scored coprolite. All right. Well,
Fossilized poo-poo.
that's the thing with digging fossils is you don't know whether you're going to score a turtle or a turd. So anyway, it's Chase Pipes Chasing History. We'll be back later on to talk more about fossil fish with Tony. So anyway, literally history freaking rocks. Woohoo!